Thank you for joining the meeting of the Platform Committee of the 2024 Democratic National Convention. I would like to call our virtual meeting to order. My name is Mitch Landrieu, and along with my friend Mayor Regina Romero of Tucson, we're honored to serve as co-chairs of this very important committee. Before we begin, we must address the incident in Butler, Pennsylvania. This violent attack on former President Trump and the rally attendees, including one American who tragically lost their life, is horrific and totally unacceptable. We want to be clear, there is no place for political violence or violence of any kind against our fellow Americans. We strongly condemn these actions and thank the brave first responders who immediately jumped into action. We wish President Trump a quick and full recovery and send our deepest condolences to the families who are impacted by this tragedy. The families of Chief Corey Compatore, who was killed on Saturday, and David Dutch and James Copenhaver, who were injured, who we all wish a full recovery. Now, turning to today's business. We're here today to collaborate and recommend a draft of the platform to the convention that will highlight the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration and showcase our party's positions on important issues that our country is facing. We appreciate all the work that's been done so far to make this comprehensive and compelling platform. Before we begin, I'd like to start with a big thank you to the Platform Drafting Subcommittee for getting us to this point, to all of the platform members who have been elected in every state and territory, and the at-large members for being with us today. We also want to acknowledge everyone who is online watching live stream to our meeting. So to begin, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Mayor Romero.
Good afternoon, fellow platform members. I'm Regina Romero, mayor of the beautiful city of Tucson, Arizona. I'm honored to serve as co-chair with co-chair Landrieu and all of you who we take up the important work of finalizing our party's platform. As we begin, I would like to thank the team who has been working diligently on the platform process over the past several weeks. The staff have poured dozens and dozens of hours into this and have supported a really strong document and a very smooth process leading up to today. Thank you so much to the staff doing all of the important work to put our platform together.
Thank you, Mayor Romero, and I echo your thanks to our team. I now have the opportunity to welcome my friend and DNC Chair Jamie Harrison to offer the committee remarks before we begin on our amendment review. When Jamie became chair of the Democratic National Committee, he envisioned a party powered by the grassroots, grown block by block in service of our shared values. That's what we see from today's DNC, and certainly throughout this platform and the testimony we are here to build on. Please join me in welcoming my friend and DNC Chair Jamie Harrison.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrison. We appreciate all of the work you put into bringing us Democrats together. Thank you for your leadership and the leadership that you bring to our party. We are very appreciative. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair, for those important words that we will carry with us as we begin our meeting. When the American people go to the polls this fall, we will be faced with a very stark choice. We can either continue the unprecedented progress that President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have achieved in the last 4 years, or elect Donald Trump, who plans to institute a national abortion ban, give handouts to billionaire donors on the backs of the middle class, and make cuts to Medicare and Social Security, and ensure that he can be a dictator from day one. His words. The choice could not be more clear on where we stand. And you will see that throughout this platform committee, we will demonstrate what we mean. The platform highlights the success of the past 4 years of President Biden, that we've created nearly 16 million jobs. Prescription drug prices are coming down, and we're taking the most ambitious action in world history to fight climate change. We're seizing record amounts of fentanyl and securing our border in the face of Republican inaction, and strengthening NATO and restoring American leadership around the world. We've worked to close the persistent racial wealth gap that has plagued our country for generations, with Black wealth climbing 60% since before the pandemic, and Latino household wealth increasing by 19% in the last 3 years. It's safe to say that the last 4 years have shown us unprecedented progress, and now we must finish the job. This platform gives us a clear vision of what we as Democrats want to accomplish in the next 4 years. We will continue to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out, investing in American infrastructure, pushing Congress to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, extending overtime pay to millions more workers, and closing the racial wealth gap. We will reward work, not wealth, cutting taxes for the middle class and low-income Americans, making the super wealthy pay their fair share, including through a 25% minimum tax on billionaires, and raising taxes on corporations. Our plan will cut the deficit by $3 trillion. We'll secure our border, fight human trafficking, reform the asylum system, keep families together, and provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. And we'll keep communities safe, passing universal background checks, banning assault weapons, and high-capacity magazine, ending the gun lobby's immunity from liability, and push Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The breadth and depth of this platform is a display of the diversity of our party and the vision we have for our country to make sure every American has a fair shot. I am honored to stand with the president and to stand behind this platform that deepens our commitment to the promise of America and lays out what we must do to finish the job that President Biden and Vice President Harris started. I want to thank, actually, it's on to you, Co-Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Mero. Thank you for those wonderful comments. I want to thank Chairman Harrison for his leadership, as well as our platform drafting committee for the incredible work they've done to present us with the boldest platform in Democratic history. As a lifelong Democrat and public servant, I've seen firsthand the good our party can do for working families. We've all seen the power of Democratic leadership to create change and command the world's respect. And that's exactly why we need to reelect President Joe Biden to finish the job that he started. When President Biden took office, our reputation around the world was stained by the last administration's America First policy that only made us less safe, our economy more fragile, and endangered our democracies, our values, and our unity. President Biden did the hard work to restore our standing on the world stage, strengthening NATO and deepening our cooperation with Europe. And he stood up to autocratic dictators, not with them. He understands that we live in an increasingly connected global economy. The path toward security relies on rallying the world to address the challenges that we face, from climate change to global health to inclusive economic growth. Our work on the world stage is not limited to diplomacy. Climate change is a global threat, and this administration has committed the United States to doing our part by passing the most aggressive climate change legislation in history. This platform will continue to tackle the climate crisis, implementing the most ambitious climate and clean energy plan in history. We will triple renewable energy production this decade, advance environmental justice, and stand up to big oil, getting rid of unfair subsidies. We want to lower utility bills for hardworking American families and conserve 30% of our land and our waters. Keeping promises is what this president does, and he has and will continue to ensure the promises that he has made to this country are kept. Our economy is growing, wages are rising, and record numbers of people have really good jobs. But we must double down on our commitment to lower the cost of living so that every American feels the impact. The Biden-Harris administration's efforts have resulted in lower costs for life-saving prescription drugs, cost savings on housing and childcare, but we have so much more to do. This platform fights to lower costs for working families, protecting affordable health coverage, capping prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone, capping insulin at $35. We will lower housing costs with rental assistance, home buyer tax credits, and building 2 million homes. And we'll fight to protect Social Security and Medicare, guarantee affordable quality child care to millions of working families for less than $10 a day per child, and guarantee paid leave. This platform boldly lays out a vision for criminal justice that ends the school-to-prison pipeline, the disparate discipline of students of color, and incentivizes community-based alternatives to prison so that we can grow a generation of brilliant citizens and contributors and not a bloated prison population. And finally, as this president has always seen hope in the promise of America, this platform lays out an agenda to end the opioid epidemic, invest in our nation's mental health system, protect our kids online, and end cancer as we know it. These are not small commitments, but this president has never dreamed small, and he doesn't plan to start now. This platform reaffirms our values as Democrats and our promise to the American people. Now let's get to work so that they can finish the job.
The first thing we will do as a committee is establish that we have a quorum. So in order to do so, we need each committee member to please open the platform committee meeting homepage on your browser and vote yes in the voting box. If you're having trouble, please use your Signal group, or you can also send a chat to Mira Popley. Platform members will use the vote to register their presence. A quorum is constituted by a majority of the total votes present, which members representing 91.75 votes. Our parliamentarian, Helen McFadden, will inform us of the status of quorum and then walk us through the rules of procedure. Helen? Yes, please go ahead.
Proposed platform document, okay? Those rules were substantially the same as we have been using for some number of years, but modified for the virtual meeting format. The things that are most important for participation today are that all of the votes will be on the electronic platform that the members just used to register their presence in the room. As to debate, there will be a limit of 8 minutes on debate if these rules are adopted. There will be a limit of 8 minutes on debate on amendments to the platform, 10 minutes on any other matter before the committee. Any proposed amendments under this set of rules were supposed to have been submitted by July the 14th, okay? And today is the 16th. Then there is a provision for minority reports. Any members who wish to make a minority report, I call their attention to Rule 14, which explains in detail how they would do that. So these rules are currently need to be adopted by the committee to become effective.
Thank you, Helen. I really appreciate you. The chair recognizes Roxy Nelson for the purpose of making a motion to approve the committee rules of procedure. Roxy. So there is a motion for the adoption of rules of procedure. The chair recognizes Kimberly Peeler Allen, who wants to second the motion. So there is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? I will ask staff to advise the chair if a member has raised their hand. Alrighty, so I do not see any points of discussion. I will now call a vote to adopt the rules of procedure. Please vote now on the platform committee homepage. If you're having trouble, please use your signal group, or you can also send a chat to Mira Popla. So go to your voting page. Alrighty. There's a countdown, and we're giving you 30 seconds to finish your vote. So the rules of procedure have been adopted. Thank you, Helen and members. Given that our convention will be held in Chicago, we wanted to make sure to incorporate a statement that recognizes and honors Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of our lands. We did so within the platform, and joining us to provide today's acknowledgement is my friend, Platform Committee member, Governor Stephen Roe Lewis. Governor Lewis of the Gila River Indian Community, you may begin.
Thank you, my good friend, Mayor Romero. Mitch, Chairman Harrison, it's great to see everyone. In my O'odham language, Skug Thosh, good day, everyone. Anya Anapchugat, Governor Stephen Roe Lewis of the Gila River Indian Community. The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we are gathered together to state our shared values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and the descendants of tribal nations who have been here since time immemorial. We honor the communities native to this continent and recognize that our country, the United States, was built on indigenous homelands. We pay our respects to the millions of indigenous people throughout history who have protected our lands, waters, and animals, and honor all of those descendants who continue to honor our past and work toward a secure and promising future. Masapo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Governor Lewis, my good friend. The purpose of today's meeting is to review the working draft of the platform you received and finalize the draft platform for the convention delegates' consideration. Pursuant to our rules, we will begin with consideration of the chair's amendment, which incorporates amendments and edits previously submitted by members. Additional amendments have been withdrawn in consideration for language incorporated into this amendment. We'll start by voting on the chair's amendment to get those changes straightened out, and then we'll walk through the platform chapters. When we reach the chapter with amendments, we'll start with those votes before moving to a review of the chapter. We have worked with the submitters and the speakers to determine who will speak when, but please don't hesitate to chat Andrew Grossman if you have a question or a thought. During consideration of the remaining amendments, the speakers and time for debate on any amendment has been pre-designated. Pursuant to our rules of procedure, time for any amendment is limited to 4 minutes in favor and 4 minutes against. All right, let's get started. Back to you, Mayor Romero.
Thank you, Mitch. First, we ask the committee to consider their chair's amendment that Mayor Landro just spoke about. We received much thoughtful feedback from you regarding the ideas expressed and the language used. We appreciated working with you throughout this process, and we incorporated much of the feedback into the chair's amendment. This demonstrates the commitment that each of you has to ensure that our platform best articulates our party's vision and values. You can view the chair's amendment on the platform homepage as sent to you earlier today. The chair recognizes Nikki Fried for the purpose of making a motion to approve the chair's amendment. Ms. Fried.
Thank you, Chairperson. I so move to approve the chair's amendment.
The chair recognizes Claire Cullis, who wants to second the motion.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? I'll ask staff to advise if there's any discussion on this. No discussion? Staff will advise if there's any members. Michelle Johnson, you're called.
Hi. Point of clarification. Are we voting on the amendments as a whole or individual items?
We are voting on the entire amendments.
Okay.
Alrighty, any further question or comment? Okay, I don't see any additional hands raised All right, seeing no further discussion, I will now call a vote to adopt the chair's amendments. Please use the platform committee homepage on your browser to vote on the chair's amendments. If you're having trouble, please use your Signal group to request support or send a chat to Mira Popla. We have 35 seconds to go. We have 10 seconds to go. All righty, voting has closed on the chair's amendment. The motion has been adopted and the relevant sections will be amended to reflect these changes.
You have had the opportunity to hear Mayor Romero and my thoughts on the values reflected in this platform, and we're looking forward to hearing from more members today. To help review the platform, Mayor Romero and I will introduce platform members to speak on each chapter. Mayor Romero, will you please introduce our first speaker?
All righty, thank you, Mitch. I'd be happy to do that. The chair will now recognize Mayor Justin Bibb, my friend, the 58th mayor of the great city of Cincinnati, the chair of Climate Mayors and vice president of the Democratic Mayors Association, to introduce Chapter 1, Growing Our Economy from the Bottom Up and the Middle Out. Mayor Bibb, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Romero. I'm also from the great city of Cleveland, Ohio, but I love Cincinnati as well, too. Listen, folks, this election is a choice between two very different economic visions for America, Mar-a-Lago or Scranton. And the Biden economic agenda is about Main Street, not Wall Street. It's about rebuilding our economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. That means ending the old trickle-down economics and investing in all Americans. That's what Joe Biden has been doing, and that's what this chapter outlines. When President Biden took office, the economy was reeling as we were still dealing with a global pandemic. He turned it around with historic legislation, investing in our infrastructure, our industry, our people, and our future. So far, over 57,000 infrastructure projects have been announced. New roads, bridges, ports, airports, water systems, high-speed internet to close the digital divide in every part of our country. Also, this president led transformative investments in manufacturing, supply chains, and also key industries of the future. He's creating hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs. And President Biden is also making sure that American union workers get more than their fair share as we rebuild our economy. In all, the Biden agenda has drawn over $870 billion in additional private investment. It's also helping to close the racial wealth gap, boosting access to credit, homeownership, and small business loans. And today, the American economy is the strongest in the world. We've added over 16 million new jobs. We've also seen a record 18 million new small business applications filed. Wages are up, and in just 4 years, we've erased a 40% of the wage inequality gap that took 4 decades to build. So this president, our president, Joe Biden, has led a great American comeback. It's working. We have to finish the job and keep investing in America. And it starts with one city at a time. And this chapter tells us how. Thanks so much.
Mayor, thank you so much. The chair will now recognize Stuart Applebaum, president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. He also serves as Executive Vice President of UFCW, Vice President of the AFL-CIO, and President of the Jewish Labor Committee to introduce Chapter 2, Rewarding Work, Not Wealth. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Applebaum. You may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. Chapter 2 of our platform makes clear that Democrats are fighting to reward work, not wealth. This is in contrast to Donald Trump, who instead has been rigging the game for his billionaire donors. Look at what Trump has done. Look at his own record. In 2017, he enacted a massive tax giveaway to the wealthiest 0.1% of the American public. He slashed the corporate tax rate by nearly half. And in the process, he exploded the deficit. And for hardworking Americans, he weakened labor protections. Make no mistake about it, despite all the theatrics, Donald Trump is no friend of working people. And we, the Democratic Party, and as our platform makes clear, we are not going to allow any of this to happen again. We are going to cut taxes for working families. And we are finally going to make the wealthy and big corporations pay their fair share. This chapter in the proposed platform lays it all out. It outlines our plan. We call for a 25% billionaire tax because, as Joe Biden says, no billionaire should pay a lower tax rate than a teacher or a firefighter. And we will get rid of all kinds of loopholes that the wealthy have exploited for far too long. We will raise the corporate tax rate to 28%. Listen to this. In 2020, 55 of the biggest corporations in America, making $40 billion in profits, paid zero in taxes. Zero. And that's wrong. And we would end special tax breaks for corporate jets and executive pay. Our platform calls for funding the IRS so it can do its job and crack down on corporate tax cheats. And at the same time, we will cut taxes for working families. We would permanently expand the child tax credit, which lifted 3 million kids from poverty in 2021. We would permanently expand the Affordable Care Act premium credit that's saving millions of families on the health coverage they need. We would provide a first-time home buyer tax credit of $10,000, and no one earning less than $400,000 will pay one extra penny in federal taxes. And our plan cuts the deficit by $3 trillion over the next decade. That is a fair tax code. It's how we invest in the things that make America strong, like healthcare, education, and a clean environment. It's how we protect programs that Americans rely on, like Social Security and Medicare. And it's how we build a powerful economy and lead the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Applebaum. Really important message and important points for our platform. Really appreciate your presentation. The chair will now recognize Mayor Paige Cognetti from President Biden's hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. My colleague and friend, Mayor Cognetti has a long history of public service, including advising the Pennsylvania Auditor General, Director on the Scranton School Board, and Senior Advisor in the U.S. Treasury Department. Mayor Cognetti, the floor is yours to introduce Chapter 3, Lowering Costs.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being on today. It's always wonderful to be with all of you, but especially my fellow mayors. So Mayor Mitch and Mayor Rahina, thank you for your leadership. Today, America's economy is the strongest in the world, but Joe Biden, Scranton Joe, from right here where I sit, knows that for far too many folks, the cost of living is very, very high. Lowering costs is Democrats' #1 economic priority. We're using every tool we have to bring prices down on health insurance and prescription drugs, housing and childcare, the internet, banking, credit cards, and more. Those savings are adding up, and as President Biden says, they give folks a little more breathing room. But we can't stop there. And we know that Donald Trump hasn't offered a single solution to lower families' costs. The extreme import tariffs that he has proposed would be a massive tax on working families. He's also planning more and more giveaways to those same corporations that have already been hiking prices to pad their profits. President Biden is attacking costs from every single angle. Chapter 3 details his plans, which include in healthcare, he'll keep working to expand the Affordable Care Act and surprise medical billing and ease the burden of medical debt. To lower prescription drug costs, he stood up to Big Pharma and capped costs for seniors at $2,000 a year. For the second term, he'll cap them at $2,000 for everyone. Together, we're going to fix caregiving costs. I'm sure there's a lot of people on this call who know that caregiving is an extremely difficult thing for Americans of all economic levels. The cost of care is too high, care workers' pay is too low, and families are caught in the middle. We'll guarantee childcare for no more than $10 per day per child for working families. We'll guarantee 12 weeks of paid leave and finally catch up with the rest of the world. On housing, we're going to have a plan to help Americans rent, buy, and build. As mayors on this call, we know how hard it is to make sure that we build housing. We've got to do more. President Biden has been working across all of his agencies and with the state and local levels on a plan, and we've got to make sure that we continue to get that housing built. For older Americans, we'll protect and strengthen Social Security and Medicare. Folks paid into those programs their entire lives, and it's a sacred promise that we must deliver on. Democrats know that. The president will continue to crack down on junk fees and corporate price gouging. It seems like a small thing, but we know how much that hits the bottom line, especially for working families in America. So our economy is making historic progress. We're best in the globe on the macro level, but when it comes down to the micro level and households in places like here in Scranton, President Biden knows better than anyone that we've got to make sure that we keep working to make sure everyone can feel the great American economy. This chapter lays out the plans that the president has for our future. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We will now hear from two exceptional education leaders, President Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers, followed by Arizona's own Platform Committee member Marisol Garcia, President of the Arizona Education Association. Thank you both for being here. We will hear from President Weingarten first, followed by President Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm so honored to be here, and I'm so honored to be here with Marisol, and I'm so honored to be here with Stuart and so many other fighters for working people and working families to become part of the middle class and to stay as part of the middle class and retire from the middle class, because that is who our party is. Our party is about those who work and those who have actually created the anchors, the foundation stones for America. And one of the ways of doing that is through education. And so we have a real contrast right now. We got the party that pulls the rug out of education, and we have this platform led by President Biden and Vice President Harris, who has actually created the foundation stone for public education. And so what this platform is it builds on what President Biden and Vice President Harris have done already, which is in the midst of COVID, they rescued schools. In the midst of everything falling apart, they were there to create opportunity and to use these funds to actually meet the needs of students, mental health needs, meet the needs in terms of health and safety, meet the needs of reopening schools in a real way. That was what we started. That's what President Biden did. But now, what we need to do is do more. Public education is the anchor of democracy and of opportunity. We need to finish the job. And what that means here and what is in the platform is it means we have to strengthen education. What the Republicans are doing, what Donald Trump is doing, what J.D. Vance is doing, and I'm talking about not just K-12, but I'm talking about higher education too, is they are the crowd that wants to pull the rug out of education and out of students. What do I mean by that? Instead of actually reducing student debt, what J.D. Vance wants to do is get rid of the ability of kids who do not have wealth to actually go to college. What Project 2025 has done is basically to say, we don't need public schools. We need to balkanize schools. We need to privatize them. And we need to give vouchers to everyone in the world Marisol knows is better than almost anyone else. And it is, what is it? It is a tax cut to the rich. What we are saying is we're not satisfied with schools as they are. We need to make every public school a place where parents want to send their kids, educators want to work, and most importantly, kids thrive. So what this platform does is say, let's strengthen the opportunities for kids by strengthening the strategies, by looking at what works, like having career tech ed and workforce development starting in junior high school and high school. So we have pathways for kids who may not want to go to college initially, but then ultimately do and get good union jobs, good middle-class jobs in an economy that's now being recreated. We strengthen opportunities for experiential learning. We strengthen opportunities in science, in social studies, in civic engagement. We strengthen opportunities in terms of literacy, starting with our youngest kids in pre-K. We strengthen opportunities that we meet the needs of kids who have been fixated on social media, who need to actually help be able to grow and meet or attack the loneliness and the addiction to social media right now. That's what this platform does. It does all of that. And it says, let's strengthen, not pull the rug out of kids. Let's strengthen kids. Let's strengthen families. Let's strengthen opportunities by making schools the center of those communities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Randy. As Democrats, we know the protection and investment of public education is a vital assurance that every student has the opportunity to reach their goals. Every student and educator should enjoy the freedom to feel safe at school, learn accurate history, and receive high-quality instruction from properly trained, respected educators that are paid their worth. In this platform document, it is imperative to reiterate the common good that is public schools, and most importantly, strong public schools for every student. Public educators and their commitment to our children and strong communities should never be undervalued or levied for profit. As a proud Arizona Union public educator, I cannot impress enough to my fellow Democrats the need to oppose, to push back, and hold accountable any and all privatization of public school systems. Strong public schools are the indicators of strong communities. And through this platform, as a guide for the next 4 years, we have the opportunity to continue to commit to build a great public school system for our greatest asset, our children. Thank you, Mary Romero.
Randy and Marisol, thank you both so much, both incredible warriors for public education. The chair will now recognize Gene Kopinski to introduce Chapter 4, Tackling the Climate Crisis, Lowering Energy Costs, Securing Energy Independence. Gene serves as the president of the League of Conservation Voters, a role he has held since 2006. Before joining the LCV, he served as the executive director of the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, advocating for environmental and public interest issues. Mr. Kopinski, please proceed.
Thank you. Great to be part of this conversation. Great to see so many friends and allies. As folks know, the climate crisis is real, and we're seeing the impacts every day. When Trump was president, he gutted over 100 clean energy and climate and environmental policies. And he did it at the bidding of big oil and the other big polluters. And he's made it clear he's going to do it again. He wants to do it again. In fact, he invited Big Oil to give him $1 billion to enact their agenda. And you can see that agenda in Project 2025. They want to destroy our environment, destroy our health. The good news is President Biden has made more progress than any president in history, by far, fighting the climate crisis. The biggest investment we've ever seen that's tripled clean energy production, created hundreds of thousands of new clean energy jobs, lowered prices for consumers, had major impacts, and it's just begun to get the job done. The platform also makes clear President Biden is making polluters pay for the damage they cause. He's promoting an environmental justice agenda, including investing 40% of the investments in communities that are most impacted by legacy pollution. He's created a new American Climate Corps so that folks can actually get paid to go work to solve the climate crisis. That's a wonderful new program. He has ambitious conservation goals to protect at least 30% of our lands and waters. We're well on our way to doing that with all the leadership he's already seen, he's already shown. And finally, he's reestablished our leadership in the global conversation about how to solve the climate crisis. So the platform underscores the progress we've made, but also lays out a vision for the future because we've got a lot more work to do to solve the climate crisis. And that vision includes we need to be energy independent, we need to be resilient, we need to be innovative, we need to be strong because too much is at stake. We need to solve the climate crisis, we need to save consumers money, create those hundreds of thousands of good paying jobs, and we need to protect our health and advance environmental justice. Thank you for a great platform, and let's get the job done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jean. The chair will now recognize Gay Valamont to introduce Chapter 5, Protecting Communities and Tackling the Scourge of Gun Violence. Ms. Valamont is currently a candidate for Congress against Matt Gaetz in Florida's 1st District. She is a gun violence prevention advocate from Pensacola, Florida, and her state's lead for the organization Moms Demand Action. Her work helped to increase the Florida chapter by over 400%. Gay, thank you for your dedication to stopping the scourge of gun violence across Florida and in the nation, and your courage to put your name on the ballot. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I am so excited to be here to talk about the legendary progress that we've made in gun violence prevention under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The platform highlights how much safer America has gotten under President Biden's leadership. The sharpest decrease in the murder rate in history and one of the lowest levels of violent crime in more than 50 years. It celebrates Democrats' historic action to pass the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and it was the most significant federal gun legislation in nearly 30 years, and it pledges to establish universal background checks on all gun sales, ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require safe storage for all guns, and end the firearm industry's immunity from liability. It recognizes the enormous investment President Biden and Vice President Harris and the Democrats have made in fighting preventing crime, including more cops on the streets and their investment in accountable policing and rebuilding public trust. President Biden's Safer America plan, which will fund 100,000 more new police officers and invest $5 billion in community violence intervention programs, otherwise known as CVIP programs. It also showcases President Biden's action to improve the criminal justice system by taking a major step to reschedule marijuana and pardoning those federally convicted of marijuana-only offenses. Invest in rehabilitation and reentry programs and using the pardon power to right the historical wrongs. It calls for further investment in rehabilitation, education, transitional housing, and other services, and pledges to expand ban the box. It highlights President Biden's lifelong dedication to ending gun violence against women, including his original authorship and recent reauthorization of the Violence Against Women's Act. And it calls for continued action to strengthen VAWA, keeping guns out of the hands of domestic abusers and ending sexual assault on campuses. It makes clear that Trump that Trump will be a disaster and roll back all of these issues, from proudly doing nothing to prevent gun violence, to the record spike in murder rate under his leadership, to tear gassing protesters outside the White House. As a lifelong gun violence prevention activist, I proudly support Biden and Harris's significant steps that they have made to improve public safety. And we must keep the Office of Gun Violence Prevention and fund it. Please vote for this. Thank you. Let's end gun violence.
Yay, thank you very much. For this chapter, we have an amendment that we're going to address before turning to a platform committee member to speak on this section. Pursuant to our rules of procedure, the process to consider and debate these amendments provides that one of the co-chairs will recognize a member to offer their amendment. After the amendment is offered, we recognize any additional speakers that have been designated as provided in our committee's rules of procedure. After discussion, we will move to a vote. In some instances, an amendment may be withdrawn after discussion and before a vote, or a substitute amendment may be offered. The chair will now recognize Luis Davila Pernas to make a motion to offer amended language.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to introduce a motion for an amendment, Chapter 6, page 55, line 23. The motion is to strike the phrase or the language self-determination for Puerto Rico and to replace it with the following. Democrats also believe that residents of the island should be able to vote for the people who enact their laws in order to enjoy full representation in their government, and that Puerto Rico has rejected its current territorial status, has earned and deserves to be admitted as a state. Democrats will continue to support efforts to allow the people of Puerto Rico to determine their future political status between the only three non-territorial options available: statehood, independence, and independence in a compact of free association with the United States.
The chair recognizes Rosemarie Vizcarrondo to second the motion.
I passionately second this motion.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second, and we'll now move to the discussion. I will call on Luis Davila Pernas to begin the discussion.
Well, good afternoon, Democrats. My name is Luis Davila Pernas. I currently serve as National Committeeman and incoming Chairman of the Puerto Rico Democratic Party. Folks, our amendment is simple. It aims to recognize the historic achievements that Democrats have made on the issue of resolving the Puerto Rico political status question once and for all. Trust me, it is tiring to wake up every day and not be able to vote for the people who debate, who come up with, enact, and even the people who interpret the laws that govern our people. It is frustrating to come to these meetings knowing that all my colleagues, i.e. all of you, for all of your good intentions, you are literally my colonial overlords. We are not equal in this meeting, and we are not equal because we don't have the same rights and we don't enjoy the same representation. And while I truly appreciate being here, the purpose of this amendment is to establish and convince you that we can no longer continue with the same empty promises of we support self-determination for Puerto Rico. Folks, Puerto Ricans cannot self-determine anything. We need an act of Congress to do so. And that is why, unfortunately, this term self-determination has been used and has become code for not doing anything or for kicking the can down the road. We are better than this. And because of that, and thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, these past 4 years, Democrats decided to stop dancing around this issue and get down to business. And so, recognizing that the people of Puerto Rico have rejected time and time again our current territorial status, and thanks to a historical compromise amongst Democratic leaders in Congress, the Puerto Rico Status Act was born. It was introduced and approved by the House in December of 2022 with unanimous Democratic support. Not a single Democrat voted against this bill. The road was long and winding, but we now have a bill that provides a fair and binding process with clear and real alternatives to finally give the people of Puerto Rico the chance to determine our own future. This bill was adopted as official administration policy by the White House, and we currently have 27 co-sponsors in the Senate, a historic number, led by Leader Schumer. My friends, if you haven't noticed, I'm very passionate about this topic. But in all seriousness, no words can describe how grateful I am to this party for all the progress we have made. And all that remains is that our party platform reflects all the progress that we have made by incorporating the Puerto Rico Status Act into our platform. Puerto Rico has earned and deserves the right to be admitted as a state or become an independent nation. 51, 52 if we come after DC, or 1. There is no other way. With that, I yield back.
Luis, thank you so much for that passionate argument. The chair will now recognize Craig Smith for debate on the amendment. Mr. Smith.
Proceed to the room.
Craig, are you with us?
No, not yet.
There we go.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
My name is Craig Smith. I'm representing the Biden-Harris campaign position for Puerto Rico. I've worked for many administrations in Puerto Rico on both sides, but I've always supported statehood for Puerto Rico. I think it's important that we're intentional with our language. That's why I'm offering this friendly substitute amendment. Chapter 6, Puerto Rico, territories, line 55, page 55, line 23. To change it to Democrats recognize that the people of Puerto Rico have earned and deserve to resolve the political status question. For this reason, Democrats support the enactment of the Puerto Rico Status Act, H.R. 2757, and promote full civic and political representation for Puerto Ricans.
I second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luis. All right, members, Craig Smith has offered a friendly substitute amendment that has been seconded. The substitute amendment is offered in place of the original motion by Luis David Pernas. Do I hear any objections? I'm directing staff to let me know whether there are any objections. If there are no objections, the substitute motion is approved by unanimous consent. So done. All right, the chair will now recognize Amanda Zarowski to speak on Chapter 6, Strengthening Democracy, Protecting Freedoms, and Advancing Equity. Mrs. Zarowski nearly lost her life due to the cruel Texas abortion ban. She spoke up to ensure that the nation would see the impact of these bans nationwide. Ms. Zarowski, thank you for being here. Thank you for your courage. And I will hand the mic over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you all for joining today. And to everyone for your tireless work to protect our country. As you heard, my name is Amanda Zarowski, and I live in Austin, Texas. In 2022, when I suffered a miscarriage at 18 weeks pregnant with a baby that I desperately wanted, I nearly died after being denied an abortion due to the cruel bans in my state. Since my experience, I've been traveling the country to fight for reproductive justice. And along the way, I have met hundreds, if not thousands of people and families who have been harmed by the chaos unleashed in this country in the past 2 years as a result of Donald Trump and his allies. The fight for reproductive freedom goes far beyond abortion and includes access to things like contraception and IVF. As Americans, we deserve to have the freedom to make our own healthcare decisions, and it is our business alone to decide if and when and how to have a family and what that family looks like. I proudly support Chapter 6, which clearly outlines how President Biden and Vice President Harris will restore and protect not just reproductive rights, but also racial equality, LGBTQI rights, women's rights, voting rights, and other basic human freedoms guaranteed to us as Americans. President Biden will not let our country go backwards to a time with barbaric laws enforced by extremist judges promoting inequality and second-class citizenship in this country. President Biden and Vice President Harris are fighting tirelessly to protect not only our freedoms as Americans, but our democracy and the future of our country. And Chapter 6 outlines exactly how. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I really appreciate your voice in this conversation, a very, very important issue for Democrats around the country. The chair will now recognize Rudy Gonzalez to introduce Chapter 7, Securing Our Border and Fixing the Broken Immigration System. Mr. Gonzalez is the CEO of Servicios de la Raza in Colorado. Servicios de la Raza addresses issues such as domestic violence, workforce development, and health access, serving marginalized communities. Under his leadership, the organization has expanded its impact, including significant contributions during COVID-19 pandemic by raising funds and providing vaccinations to thousands of Latinos across the state. Mr. Gonzalez, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
And thank you, Mayor Romero, and your Tocaya. That's my mom's maiden name, Romero. Anyway, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, all the leaders of this committee. Immigration. On his first day in office, President Biden sent Congress legislation to secure our border, fix our immigration system, and provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers and others. This past year, the president worked across the aisle and negotiated a bipartisan deal that included the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border in decades. It would have made our country safer and made our border more secure, while treating people fairly and humanely and expanding legal immigration consistent with our values as a nation. Congress failed to act because Republicans, led by Donald Trump, would rather play politics than solve problems. President Biden has taken decisive action to secure our border through executive actions, have decreased illegal border crossings. He also issued an executive order to protect spouses of U.S. citizens who have been in this country for years and remove barriers for dreamers who graduate from U.S. schools so that they can remain in the only country they know as home. In President Biden's second term, he will push Congress to pass legislation that is consistent with our values as a nation. Legislation must secure the border, reform the asylum system, expand legal immigration, and keep families together by supporting a pathway for long-term undocumented individuals, improving the work authorization process, and securing the future of the DACA program. I might add that in the news today, the illegal border arrests are down 29% because of President Biden. Thank you.
Sir, the chair will now recognize Yvette Nicole Brown to introduce Chapter 8, Advancing the President's Unity Agenda. Many of you may recognize her from the hit series Community or her role on Drake and Josh, among so many others. Ms. Brown is renowned for her advocacy work promoting diversity and inclusion in the entertainment industry. Ms. Brown, thank you for your service to this committee. The mic is yours.
Thank you for having me. Hey, everybody. I am overjoyed to be tasked with telling you all about Chapter 8, which is Unity. It is a surprise to no one that President Biden is a president for all of us. Further, I wish it would go without saying, but I must say it. Our issues are not with each other, no matter what folks say. So when we drown out the noise, we know that we are a country that values unity. And we also know that we have a president and a vice president who both value unity as well. President Biden has been busy attacking the actual challenges Americans face, like the opioid crisis, the mental health crisis, the tragedy of cancer, caring for our veterans and military families, holding big tech accountable so we can protect kids online. And thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, opioid overdoses can and have been curbed thanks to an over-the-counter medication, which is now available. And I won't try to pronounce it, but it's doing a lot of good. We also now have a national suicide crisis line. It's 988, and it has helped 10 million Americans get connected to counselors when in the midst of a personal crisis. We also have the PACT Act, which expands veterans' business help for them. So I could go on and on, but those are just a few of the good things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have implemented or spearheaded for the good of our country. More than anything, it's important to have a commander-in-chief who actually cares about people and wants to make their lives better. That's the job. So let's do all that we can to reelect these two principled people. America needs servant leaders right now. Thank you.
What an honor to have you on our platform committee. Really appreciate your incredible voice and really love your work. So the chair now will recognize Ambassador Ed Gabriel and Colin Call to introduce Chapter 9, Strengthening American Leadership Worldwide. Ambassador Gabriel is currently on the board of directors of the United States Institute for Peace and the president of the American Task Force on Lebanon, in addition to being the former ambassador to the Kingdom of Morocco. Colin Call is the former Undersecretary of Defense for Policy and served as the National Security Advisor to then Vice President Biden. He is currently a professor at Stanford University. We'll start with Ambassador Gabriel, and then Colin will speak.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a real honor to address our fellow platform members here today. Thank you. You know, I must say the recent events in the Middle East and the U.S. responses to it have proven to be among the most contentious in recent history. I believe the drafters of this platform, however, have authored a balanced statement that addresses the concerns of all the stakeholders. President Biden and Vice President Harris oppose unilateral steps by either side, including annexation that undermine the prospects for two states. The administration also opposes settlement expansion. President Biden has been committed to the Middle East peace deal, which will allow for the rebuilding of Gaza in a manner that doesn't allow Hamas to rearm, working with partners to rebuild hospitals, schools, and destroyed communities, and supporting crucial assistance to the Palestinian people. It would also create the conditions for a better future for the Palestinian people, one of self-determination, dignity, security, freedom, and ultimately a state of their own, unlike and in contrast to Trump, who refuses to endorse the political aspirations of the Palestinian people. President Biden has also spoken out against extremist settler violence, imposing financial sanctions on foreign persons who threaten the peace, the security, or the stability of the West Bank. And finally, let me just say the statement calls for an independent and sovereign Lebanon and a peaceful diplomatic settlement on the Israeli-Lebanon border, thus avoiding further escalation. Thank you, Mayor.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Ambassador Gabriel. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a great pleasure to talk with all of you about Chapter 9 of this year's platform. Once again, I'm Colin Call. I'm a member of the Platform Committee. Let's begin by remembering what things were like when Donald Trump was president. Trump's reckless foreign policy shredded American capability on the credibility on the world stage, showed disdain for our closest democratic allies, cozied up to dictators like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, ignored existential threats like climate change, and did nothing to lead the world in the face of the COVID pandemic. If Trump wins in November, we should expect more of the same, and America will be more isolated and less safe as a result. In sharp contrast, President Biden has demonstrated remarkable foreign policy leadership at an incredibly turbulent time. President Biden has a proven track record of investing in the sources of American power, prosperity, and security around the world. The president understands that in an interconnected world, domestic and foreign policy challenges are highly intertwined. He understands that building on our strengths at home, which means investing in our people, our economy, our environment, our technological innovation, and our democracy, directly translates to our ability to shape world events and keep America safe. As the president likes to say, America leads not only with the example of our power, but the power of our example. For that reason, even though the foreign policy chapter of the platform is last, everything that comes before it shapes our ability to exercise leadership around the world. When it comes to the practice of foreign policy, the platform articulates President Biden's view that America must always lead with diplomacy as our tool of first resort, while ensuring we maintain the strongest military in the world. We must always lead with our values, which is more important than ever when America is being challenged by authoritarian powers like Russia and China, intent on reshaping the international order in ways that undermine our security and our way of life. And the president understands that we must invest in our unrivaled network of allies and partners around the world, because we can't tackle a single major issue we face, whether it's the geopolitical challenge posed by China, adversaries like Russia, Iran, and North Korea, international crises like we see in Ukraine and Gaza, the existential threat of the climate crisis, and the profound consequences of emerging and disruptive technologies. We can address none of these things alone. We are always stronger when we act alongside others. That's something that President Biden gets in a deep and abiding way, and it's something that Donald Trump does not and never will. Chapter 9 offers a clear articulation of President Biden's vision for advancing our key interests in vital regions across the globe. It has compelling sections on Europe, the Indo-Pacific, Africa, and the Western Hemisphere, and goes into great depth into the president's efforts to push back against China's unfair economic practices, how he stood up for American workers, stood by our allies in the region in the face of China's regional coercion, and made critical investments in the technologies of the future, like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and clean energy that will enable America to continue to outcompete China, our most consequential strategic competitor, in the years and decades to come, while ensuring that competition does not result in conflict. But let me conclude with a few words on how the platform approaches the Middle East, which is something that Ambassador Gabriel spoke so eloquently about. The terrible events that have unfolded in Gaza since Hamas launched its horrific terrorist attack on Israel last October 7th have produced enormous suffering and raw emotions. As the platform makes clear, President Biden and Vice President Harris recognize the worth of every innocent life, whether Israeli or Palestinian. President Biden has a vision for the region, one rooted in a durable peace, human dignity for all, regional integration to stand against common threats emanating from Iran and its terrorist proxies, and a negotiated two-state solution that ensures that Israel's future as a Jewish and democratic state and the right of Palestinians to live in freedom and security in a viable state of their own. Hamas attempted to destroy that vision on October 7th, but President Biden is determined that Hamas will not succeed. From the outset, President Biden has stood by Israel in its fight against Hamas, defended Israel in international fora, and worked with Congress to provide an historic aid package, all while tirelessly pursuing diplomacy to free the hostages, establish a durable ceasefire, surge humanitarian assistance, and address the immense civilian pain and suffering in Gaza, and make progress towards further normalization between Israel and the Arab world in tandem with a meaningful political horizon for a Palestinian state and the reconstruction of communities in Gaza that have been devastated by this war. As the president has taken these steps, he has stood up to Iran and its terrorist proxies, and alongside an unparalleled coalition of allies and partners to defend American troops, to defend Israel and the broader region, while taking decisive military action to deter a wider war. As the platform makes clear, all of this stands in sharp contrast to Trump's incoherent approach towards Iran and his utter disregard of the requirements for a lasting peace in the region that ensures the security and dignity of Israelis and Palestinians alike. Thank you all.
Colin, thank you so much. And Ambassador, thank you. And to all the folks that spoke on behalf of each of the chapters, thank you so much for participating in our effort today. Committee members, we have taken action on all of the amendments before us to date. The chair will now recognize Ida Briseno to make a motion to approve the draft platform as considered today and to authorize staff to make corrections which are consistent with our discussions. This document will be recommended for approval to the full convention when it begins to vote.
Thank you. So moved to approve the platform.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Ricky Cole to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I proudly second the motion.
Thank you so much. Is there any discussion? I will ask the staff to advise the chair of any raised hands. Seeing none, we will move to the vote. Please use your platform committee homepage on your browser to vote on the platform report as amended. All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. If you're having trouble, please use your signal group, or you can also send a chat to Mira Popley. The vote is in progress. The motion is passed. The draft platform as considered today was approved, and staff are authorized to make corrections which are consistent with our discussions. Mayor Romero.
Thank you, Mitch. Really appreciate it. This is amazing. This is wonderful. We've got our platform. Now we all go and talk about what an incredible platform we have. After having completed the business of this committee, it is my honor to recognize the president of the Service Employees International Union, April Verret, for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you so much, Mayor. It's been a privilege to serve on this platform committee with all of you all. And I just want to say, look, we know what this election is about, and it is clear. It is a choice between two very, very different visions for America. It is a vision that Donald Trump has that comes from his perch at his country club in Mar-a-Lago, or it's about the vision that our President Joe Biden has, who sees the world and our country from kitchen tables in Scranton, Pennsylvania. While President Trump is working for the ultra wealthy and large corporations, our president Biden, is fighting for every worker to get their union. He's fighting to pass the PRO Act. He's fighting to finally raise the federal minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. And he is fighting to make sure every worker who wants to organize for better pay, benefits, and working conditions has the opportunity to do so. Democrats, we are fighting to reward work, not just wealth. We will reward work and not just wealth. We will make the child tax credit and earned income tax credit permanent. We will raise the corporate tax rate, and we will make sure that billionaires pay a minimum income tax so that they are no longer paying an average tax rate that is lower than a fighter or a teacher. Today, our economy is growing. Wages are rising, and the record number of Americans have good jobs. Together, America has built its way back to the strongest economic recovery in the world, and we should be proud of that. But there are still far, far too many hardworking families that are worried every single night, worried about the cost of living because it still feels too high. That's why our President Biden, is taking action to lower the cost of healthcare, to protect Social Security, to expand benefits, and to finally increase access to care for our elders and our siblings with disabilities. He's working to guarantee affordable, quality childcare to millions of working families. President Biden is delivering the most aggressive climate agenda in history. His landmark legislation has unleashed a clean energy boom that is reducing pollution, lowering energy costs, and has already created over 300,000 good-paying American jobs. He is positioning us to lead the future, an energy independent, resilient, innovative, and strong future. Under our president's second term, Democrats together, we will continue to invest in clean energy, research, and development. And we will build on our legacy as a nation of new frontiers and new possibilities. Let's go get it, Democrats.
Thank you so much, President Barrett. That was incredible. I would now like to recognize Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta for a point of personal privilege. Representative.
Thank you so much, Mayor. You know, today, I hope that we all just take a step back at what we just did. Today, Democrats just reiterated a point that bears repeating. Policy matters. The stakes could not be higher. The visions of the two parties could not be more stark. And Project 2025 remains a threat to every single fundamental freedom that we hold dear. You know, I like to say this with all respect to my colleagues from all across the country. You know, Pennsylvania is the place that birthed this often unwieldy experience in self-governance. And I believe that Pennsylvania is going to play an important role in saving that democracy and in moving us in a direction where we expand the promise of America to include everybody, And we have been lucky to have a president and a vice president for 4 years who have not just talked about getting things done, who've not just given flowery speeches, who've not just sent out tweets, but who have actually delivered for the American people. And on that, as Democrats, we can be proud to go out for the next 3.5 months and talk about an America that sees every single community, to be a party that truly believes every single community deserves a champion and every single community is worth fighting for. And so now we have our difficult work ahead to take this platform every single place, our community centers, our faith institutions, everywhere we can, to talk about a vision of an America where costs are low, where families can thrive, and where fundamental freedoms are protected, and where every single person, no matter who they are, what they look like, where they're from, that they're respected and treated with fundamental dignity. Listen, I grew up in a working poor family here in North Philly. Buried both of my parents by the time I was 27 because they didn't have access to the type of healthcare everybody deserves. Have watched too many people who I know and love, neighbors, lose their lives to gun violence. Have been in a community where before Obamacare, so many folks didn't have access to healthcare. And so for neighbors like mine, politics and the decision that we make is existential. It's critical. The work that we are going to do together to expand the promise of America, to finish the job that this president and vice president have started, it's not about just our team winning. It's about the American people thriving. And so I am damn proud of this platform. We should all be proud of it. I'm happy that we actually had a robust discussion about what our platform is and included real detailed policy on how we're going to deliver for the American people. And when you take this platform that we just approved and put it next to Project 2025, which is the platform for the other side, we have a product to be proud of. We have a president to be proud of. We have an administration to be proud of. And let's get out there and finish the work. Thank you, chairs. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Representative Kenyatta. And also thanks again to President Barrett for those two compelling statements. All right, folks, we've completed this committee's work on the 2024 Democratic Party platform. I'd like to thank everyone again for their participation. We appreciate all your input on the important issues for the committee to consider. Thank you to the platform team who've been working around the clock on this to make sure this has been a smooth and seamless process. I have no doubt that our party platform is going to clearly articulate the values of our great party and highlight Joe Biden's vision for our country. It's now time for us to finish the job. Mayor Romero, take us out.
Thank you so much, Mayor Alejandra. I really appreciate your work on this. I've been privileged to work with an excellent team, and I want to echo your appreciation to all those involved in crafting this platform. I am very proud of the work we have accomplished together, and I hope you are too. The strength of our party is in its diversity. And there is more that unites us than divides us. We all understand how vital this election is to our nation and to the future, to our children. So my fellow Democrats, let's organize, energize, and mobilize our voters. Members, we have concluded the business scheduled for our meeting today. As such, since there is no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you all on the campaign trail. Let's go get it, Democrats.